We are here at the Pyramid in Memphis, Tennessee. Brian Kenny, Al Bernstein, and Max Kellerman. And in a relatively clean and historically significant bout, Lennox Lewis lays claim to an entire era. Lennox Lewis never had that unification matchup with Riddick Bowe, but he did beat Evander Holyfield really twice and has now finished off what was left of Iron Mike Tyson. Let's pick it up in round one, the only close round, fellas. So much pressure at the start. We could feel it, and you know what? They're human. They could feel it.
Yeah, they really could. As they came out, you had to wonder what they were thinking. There was a lot of pressure, both men with a lot on the line. In the first round, Tyson had probably his best round of the fight and maybe won this very close round. He jabbed his way in there a moment ago, landed a couple of good left hooks. Lewis landed a few good uppercuts. Those uppercuts were a portent of things to come, and there's the straight right hand by Lewis. But round one, he couldn't fight with Tyson, but Tyson did pretty well. Round two, however, was when Lewis really started to pick up the pace. There's the jab. That would become the dominant punch in this fight for Lennox Lewis. And here comes the uppercut. That would be the second most dominant punch. That along with the straight right hand. And Tyson was very effective with those uppercuts, got Tyson's attention early.
By the time we got to round four, Max, Mike Tyson is bleeding and the uppercut is whistling.
By the fourth round, this fight was a mismatch. Physically, you could see it. Lennox was much bigger. Tyson could not get inside the jab. There you see Lennox Lewis landing a right hand. And by the way, folks, Lennox Lewis's right hand is delivered either over the top, like you see right there, or underneath from the uppercut, just about as hard as any punch was ever thrown in the history of boxing. He landed it repeatedly against Mike Tyson. Another right hand. I mean, Tyson absorbed a lot of those right hands. He couldn't get inside the jab. Now, in the fourth, Eddie Cotton deducted a point from Lennox Lewis for, I guess, holding and hitting and pushing Tyson down. But what it looked like to me was Tyson was hurt with a right hand. Lennox put a little pressure on Mike Tyson's back, and Tyson willingly went down. I think Cotton was so concerned with not being unfair to Mike Tyson that he bent over backwards and overcompensated, you know, against Lennox Lewis. By the sixth round, I mean, this fight, it was just a matter of time. When's it going to end? Lewis controlling the space, playing with Tyson with his hands down by his side. You'd think dangerous against a puncher of Tyson's caliber, but there you see, right hand all the way down. Tyson's corner imploring him. Ronnie Shields, look, his hands are down. Throw the hook, throw the right hand. Tyson could not get close enough. When he did get close, he got whacked with uppercuts.
By round 8, Tyson had that Tokyo Buster Douglas look, Al.
Yeah, he really did. He looked like a very lethargic fighter who couldn't go into later rounds, which we suspected beforehand. That's one of the few right hands to the body that Lennox Lewis threw. Actually, neither fighter went to the body very much in this fight. Again, the uppercut, that became a theme in this fight as Lennox Lewis started to get Mike Tyson in trouble. At this point in the 8th round, he went to his knees, and the end was near.
Yeah, I thought I heard him say, Al, a couple rounds earlier, I think going into the 6th, I have nothing. I'm not sure, but it sounded like that to me, and he really didn't have anything. Lennox Lewis certainly did. Look, this was typical Lennox Lewis against typical Mike Tyson of recent years. It's a predictable result, and there's an image a lot of people will be happy to see, and some people won't be, and there's a great heavyweight champion.
Tyson went down from an uppercut right-hand combination first, and then after that, it was one right hand, kind of like that right hand he'd used to deck Hasim Rahman, a clean shot, and Eddie Cotton, the referee, counted to 10. So no controversy. Nothing to do with any of the things that people were worried about at the start of this fight. Lennox Lewis knocks out Mike Tyson in the 8th round, knocks him down twice in round number 8. It was a mismatch as far as the punches were thrown as well. Again, you may have given Mike Tyson the first round. I gave Tyson the first round, but it was close after that. Guys, I don't think you can give him a round. You fight, you go to the punch stats, you take a look at what was thrown and what was landed. It's all Lennox Lewis. But we did wonder, while the fight was on, we wondered, could Mike Tyson land that one shot?
Well, and he didn't, and part of the reason was this number, the jabs that Lennox Lewis threw. Landing 53% of your jabs is terrific, and Mike Tyson not going to land many jabs, but he couldn't jab his way in effectively. That jab was the dominant punch for Lewis to control the fight.
Yeah, and you can see Tyson tried to 134 jabs a lot, nothing landed hardly, and punches thrown. Lennox threw more shots, landed at a higher percentage, landed more cleanly, landed the bigger shots. This fight was a total statistical mismatch, and it was a mismatch in the ring.
Manny Stewart, the trainer for the heavyweight champion, says this is vindication.
Lennox Lewis in a lot of ways, and he's beaten every fighter of his era, never dodged anyone. And when you look back at him, as I've said before, his history record is going to be phenomenal. And I think now there's really nothing he can do if he just wants to make a mandatory and fight Chris Bird. But he's proven himself to be the dominant heavyweight in boxing now for the last 10 years. I don't think there'll be a rematch. I mean, not even worth getting into. I mean, it was a total mismatch after a certain point. The only time that Mike was in the fight was when the referee was taking points from Lennox, giving them to him. But other than that, he wasn't in the fight after the first round.
And Lennox Lewis is the new age athlete. Look at this, 34 and older for heavyweights. Lennox Lewis now 6-1, and you know, right now he's standing on top of the world. It's not as if, well, he's barely hanging on, he's just staying with the game. No, Lennox Lewis is still the king at the age of 36. Mike Tyson, give him credit for this, Al. He said before the second Holyfield bout, I always take my beating like a man. Give me that. He took his beating all right. Lennox Lewis doled out the beating.
Yeah, and Mike Tyson was gracious afterwards. We do have to give him credit for that. You know, the thing I hope doesn't happen is that revisionist historians look at this and say, oh, well, you know, he beat a diminished Mike Tyson. Yes, he did, but they do that a lot with Lennox Lewis. After he beat Galata, they said, oh, he wasn't so good. After he beat Akinwande, well, he held a lot. He beat Michael Grant too young. He beat David Tua. He was one-dimensional. The fact of the matter is, Lennox Lewis fights everybody they put in front of him, and he has fought the best in his division, as Emmanuel Stewart said, and he deserves acclaim now as heavyweight champion.
And by the way, you have to be careful against David Tua and Mike Tyson. And he had an 8th-round stoppage in this fight against a Tyson who came in looking like he was ready to win, although he was gassed by the second round.
People get fooled by Lennox Lewis's style. They think of him as a cautious boxer. He is, but he can punch as hard as anyone in the history of boxing with that right hand, including Foreman, Shavers, Mike Tyson, anybody. He's a tremendous puncher. And, you know, I said before this fight, should Tyson win, I put him in the half-dozen heavyweight champions of all time. And people were like, what are you talking about? He's to be the only big fight Tyson ever won, at least since the Spinks fight. This is what I'm talking about. It's all about how much I think of Lennox Lewis. This guy has totally cleaned out the division. He's beaten Evander Holyfield twice now. He just totally dominated Mike Tyson. The young guys like Grant and David Tua and Hasim Rahman. In the past, they're almost 10 years ago, guys like Ray Mercer and Razor Ruddock and recently Andrew Galata. He's beaten everyone they put in front of him, and yes, he's been knocked out twice. In this day and age of 240 pounds heavyweights, that can happen. He's avenged both losses by knockout, and that graphic was great, over 34. He has the highest winning percentage in title fights of any heavyweight in history. Just like Barry Bonds hits 37 home runs, the 73 home runs at the age of 37, Lennox Lewis is still going strong at the age of 36, a great heavyweight champion.
Well, the judges were not a factor. Neither man has ever lost a decision. You go out on your shield with these two fighters, and Tyson did indeed. And now this is third straight title bout loss. Of course, he had two to Evander Holyfield, and now to Lennox Lewis, and there was no question about this. Eddie Cotton, by the way, took away a point from Lennox Lewis. Is that ironic? We've talked about Lennox. He did it to David Tua. He did it to Michael Grant. He will hold and hit. He did it here. I thought Eddie Cotton did an outstanding job.
You know, the interesting thing about this fight is, and it speaks to probably part of the reason why Lennox Lewis won, he was also the rougher fighter in there. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say dirty, though there were a couple of spots where he maybe bent the rules, but they said it, when you fight a bully, you need to bully him. The reason Evander Holyfield beat Mike Tyson was after that first round, Tyson hit him late, Holyfield hit him right back again. Lennox Lewis asserted himself in many different ways in this fight, and that was one of them.
Mike Tyson had a glorious era from 1985 to 1988. We wondered if he could recapture the magic. As it turns out, he could not, at least not against Lennox Lewis. Just moments ago, Jeremy Schaap talked to the former heavyweight champion of the world.
Look at Jeremy. Say hi to Jeremy.
How you doing? What's your name?
His name is Miguel.
Miguel?
He's going to be the next champ.
How you doing, man?
He's going to be the next champ.
Miguel, what'd you make of the fight?
Oh, Daddy had a bad day at the office. I'm just glad he's alive to come and play with me.
Mike, at what point did you think you couldn't win this fight?
Oh, man, I don't know. He had me hurt from the beginning. He just kept me hurt all through the fight. Oh, baby, be nice. And he was just fighting constantly. And man, he was wonderful tonight.
You know, he said quite often that Mike Tyson had never seen a fighter like Lennox Lewis before. Is that now something you can say that he was right about?
Well, I don't know if I've never seen a fighter like that, but tonight he fought magnificently, and he was the best fighter tonight.
Where do you go from here, Mike?
I don't know, man. I might just fade into Bolivian, you know what I mean? I don't have nowhere to go and nothing to do, you know what I mean? I just go fly my pigeons on the roof in New York, you know?
You're not going to fight again?
I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to chill out with my children and fly my birds. I'm just, listen, I'm not in your guys' world. I'm a street guy, you know what I mean? I don't have to ever worry about seeing your guys, like worrying about your guys judging me or saying anything about me because it really doesn't touch my bases or my nucleus. So I'm just happy to be talking to you. And I'm just happy that you're doing well. You know, I'm sure your father would be proud of you. And I have a great deal of respect for you, and I'm glad just to be having this interview with you.
Thank you, Mike. Considering how dominant Lennox was tonight, do you think you deserve a rematch? You are contractually, you are contractually entitled to one.
Well, like I said before, I talked to Shirley Finger, if the price is right, I'll fight a lion, you know what I mean? I want my children to have the same lifestyle I have and live the same lifestyle I live, so yeah, I'll fight anyone.
After the first round, it appeared that you had won that first round. Did you think you won it on all rounds? Did you think you had this fight won?
No, because in the first round, he really, believe it or not, he hurt me in the first round, and he had kept me hurt.
When did he hurt you in the first round?
I wish I knew, I would tell you. But yeah, he hurt me in the first round.
You fought a lot of good fighters over the years. You fought Evander Holyfield twice. Is this the toughest opponent you ever had?
Well, listen, tonight he was the toughest. He was victorious, and a loss is a loss, and you really can't equate who's tougher from a loss. You just know you got your butt kicked, and you can't say, well, he kicked my butt better than he kicked my butt. I don't know. It's just, I'm just happy that he did a wonderful job, and he didn't kill me in there.
Mike, you were very gracious. You have been very gracious after this fight. Has this in some way been a transformation for you? So what's happened this evening?
Hey, nothing's been a transformation. I have respect for all fighters. I don't really say anything bad about fighters. I'm just a good salesman, and I just want everybody to be happy, and it's glad that both of us left the ring healthy.
The knockout punch, from your perspective, what was it like?
I couldn't see the punches coming. My eyes was pretty closed, and like I said, he basically just wore me down. He was too big and strong.
You said before the fight that you didn't respect him. Now you're saying you do respect him. How much do you respect him?
Listen, I always had a great deal of respect for Lennox. Me and Lennox have been friends, ironically, since we were both 15 and 16 years old. I've known Lennox before anybody in boxing known Lennox. And this is just what competitive people do. This is what they say. This is what they talk. Oh, boy, I'm so sorry. We're in a hurt business. And, you know, in this business, people get hurt sometimes. But we're not violent individuals. Most fighters probably never had a street fight, you know what I mean? But, you know, this is just what we do. This is a science. This is a discipline. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a tough guy or a brutal guy to be masterful in this particular discipline.
He said, Mike, that he wanted to hurt you because you had bit him back on January 22nd. Did you ever get a chance tonight to apologize to him for the bite?
Well, listen, I'm sure he know I didn't mean to hurt him, but, you know, we're in the mix of fight and everything goes, you know what I mean, love and war.
Were you doing all those wild things from January through the press conference most recently to sell tickets?
I did a good job, and I did a good job, and I'm just happy, you know what I mean, that we fought and it's over, and that if it's possible we could do it again and get really another payday, you know what I mean? Because it's really, this is a beautiful sport, and it's been great to me.
You seem very much at peace with yourself right now, much more so than in most of the opportunities I've had to speak to you recently. Are you more at peace right now?
No, listen, I have a great responsibility. I have to take care of all these children. I have a different stage in my life right now, you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm getting soft or not, but, you know, I just love taking care of my children and flying my birds. I have a different aura in my life right now.
Was there a particular moment during the fight, Mike, when you realized that you weren't going to win the fight?
Well, no, I just kept fighting until the fight was over. You know what I mean? Because anything's possible.
When did you realize how good Lennox Lewis is?
Well, since when the bell first rang, he was just fighting magnificently.
Mike, thanks very much. Anything else you want to say tonight?
No, I'm just, I'm thankful all my fans came out. I'm sorry if they're disappointed. I really appreciate the support. And Memphis has been magnificent. And I thank Lennox Lewis for giving me a shot.
Mike, thanks very much. Former heavyweight champion Mike Tyson.
Jeremy, thank you. He could hardly be any more gracious, even bringing up the late Dick Schaap.
Hey, what you want? He took his beating in the Douglas, Holyfield. Now Lewis fights like a man, and he's always a gracious loser.
We hope to speak to Lennox Lewis a little later on. That'll do it from here in Memphis. Let's go back to the studio.
Thanks, fellas. Amazing one. And on Wednesday, Barry Bonds.
And that if it's possible, we could do it again and get really another payday. You know what I mean? Because it's really, this is a beautiful sport, and it's been great to me.
A very gracious Mike Tyson. And we've seen him lose before, Max, but there seems to be more of a sense of finality with this one.
Well, yeah, and, you know, the appeal of Mike Tyson, everyone acts as if it's just a bad guy routine. No, it's always been the juxtaposition of the wild man bad guy with the vulnerable good guy. Yeah, good guy, as it came across right there. And each time in his career, he's been knocked down. Say what you will about Mike Tyson, he's had the heart when the referee starts counting to get up.
This was a legacy fight, and Lennox Lewis has now cleaned out his era in the heavyweight division, and he still reigns supreme. Lewis Tyson is done. From here in Memphis, for Al and Max, I'm Brian Kenny. Let's go back to the studio.
Thanks, guys. Still the
on Tyson and Lewis. We have already heard from a gracious former champion, Mike Tyson. Let's hear from the heavyweight champion of the world, Lennox Lewis, with Jeremy Schaap. Jeremy?
Brian, thanks very much. An absolutely convincing victory for Lennox Lewis, retaining his 2 championship belts. Lennox, does this make up for the bite?
Absolutely. I said that I was going to discipline Mike Tyson in the ring, and that's what I aimed to do. I went out there and did it. You know, I got off to a sticky start, but then, you know, Emmanuel Stewart told me to settle down, so I settled down. And after that, it was just showing the world that I was a pugilist specialist.
What were your thoughts in that first round that it appeared you lost?
You know, I just wanted to show him that, I wasn't scared of him. He was trying to intimidate me and trying go for the early knockout, but you know, we were basically getting used to each other, and he always takes one round, and that was the first round to do that.
Mike Tyson once famously said that everyone has a plan until they are hit. Did you ever feel the full force of his power?
You know, he hit me with a good left hook one time, but you know, I curved that off, and I came back with my own punches. I just wanted to go in there and hit him first. His plan was to come in there and hit me, but I wanted to definitely hit him.
Lennox, at what point did you realize that I can hurt Mike Tyson and he can't hurt me?
I think it was like the 3rd round, 4th round. You know, Emmanuel Stewart told me to step to him and, you know, put him out, get rid of him. He's slow. And I just wanted to soften him up with my jab a bit more, and that's what I did.
In the 4th round, you had him down on the canvas. Eddie Cotton said that it was a push down. Do you think it was a knockdown?
Yeah, it was definitely a knockdown. You know, Eddie Cotton, the ref, it seemed like he was working against me. He said he took a point off because I hit him when he was down. And I was saying, no, I didn't hit him when he was down. But, you know, the ref is in there to control everything. But, you know, I had a lot of things working against me, but I was able to come through.
Lennox, and then take me to the 8th round of the knockout punch, the whole sequence.
Well, you know, I was throwing my jab, and, you know, it didn't seem like he could get away from my jab, so I was just, you know, putting that probing jab out there and seeing which way he was going to duck, and he really was ducking to my right. So I threw a looping right hand and caught him straight on the chin and put him out.
You said you were going to win this fight. You said you were going to win it by knockout. You said you would win it easily, but there always has to be some kernel of doubt in the back of your mind. When did you erase that kernel of doubt?
Well, when I was starting to get to him, when I was seeing that, you know, I was cutting him open with my jabs when his nose was bleeding, you know, that just inspired me more. And the Memphis fans were great. They were cheering for me, and I had a lot of fans out there cheering for me, and, you know, I felt good in there.
The significance of this victory in your storied career?
Definitely a defining moment for Lennox Lewis's legacy.
Do you feel you've silenced your critics?
Absolutely. You know, what else is there for me to prove? I proved everything.
Did Mike fight well enough to deserve a rematch?
Well, you know, I need to go and look at the tape and see what happens, but, you know, my main thing is to show this sweet science of the sport, and that's what I went out there and did, hit him and not allow him to hit me and make it very difficult for him to hit me, and, you know, I definitely have to go look at this fight afterwards.
That's not quite an answer. Emmanuel said he doesn't deserve a rematch.
Well, you know, it depends what the people want. If the people want to see it again, if they still can't believe it, I'll definitely do it again. You're right. Lennox Lewis is forever.
Lennox, congratulations. Lennox Lewis now 42-1 in his distinguished career.
Jeremy Champ, thank you. Al Bernstein, Max Kellerman joining me. Even when you're rich, you want to get paid. He wouldn't mind doing that again, and he's going to box. He's a pugilist specialist, and he brings the hammer down.
Yeah, and you know what I thought was interesting? Number one, he did a great job of, he'd be a great politician, actually, selling the possibility of a rematch. One thing we can take away from that interview that Jeremy did, Lennox Lewis doesn't look like a man who's ready to retire, even though this would be an opportune time to do it. And he's performing very well, certainly, so nobody needs to rush him into retirement, but it's clear we'll see Lennox Lewis again.
Max, you often point out just how difficult it is to clear out any division at any point in the history of the game.
Yeah, very few fighters have done it, and Lennox Lewis, maybe 1 or 2 more fights, will have done it. He's a great, historically great heavyweight champion. He proved it again tonight. He was too big and too good for Mike Tyson.
Lennox Lewis, the heavyweight champion of the world. Perhaps Chris Bird could be next, but again, this was the threat. Manny Stewart said he's the last one of the era that could challenge, potentially,
those
Lennox
two belts
Lewis.
are not important. He is the real heavyweight champion of the world, with or without any belts.
That'll do it from Memphis. Let's go back to the studio.
Thanks, guys. Canes and wings.
With a thunderous right hand, Lennox Lewis KOs Mike Tyson in 8. Iron Mike, a distant memory. Lennox Lewis, hard as steel. He is the champ. He is at the mic in Memphis.
They kept me together, and you could say this fight is a very defining fight, especially for my legacy. It was always worrying me because even after the Rockman fight, you know, people said, oh, he's finished, he can't come back. And I came back, I knocked out Rockman in the 4th round, 1 round before he knocked me out. Showed the world that anybody that beats Lennox Lewis, he can always come back and beat them, you know. Can't walk in the rain without getting wet, and those were just raindrops. This particular fight still had a lot of disbelievers out there, and they had to see me against Mike Tyson before they really believed that I was the best on the planet. And, you know, like I said, it was a defining fight, and I'm just happy that I was able to come through, you know. I'm sure that I've proven a lot of people wrong, especially the person that asked the question. Okay, good. Okay, the question is, I've beaten everybody in my generation, in this era. What else is there for me to prove? You know, I've answered all the questions. I'm glad I've answered all the questions. And, you know, what else is there for me to prove? You know, I'm reversing the question to you. Okay, I understand the question. My answer is I'm going to enjoy this victory and marvel in the victory and take it easy for a couple weeks, but I'll definitely give you that answer later on.
Man, you gave him a lot of credit for teaching Tyson.
The atmosphere for this fight was a great atmosphere. It was very nice. I mean, the Memphis people were great. The fans that traveled to come see this fight were, I'm just happy, I'm glad. Thank you for coming to see me. And I believe there should be some more fights in Memphis. And I like to big up I like to big up Sam's Town. They've been most gracious and great. And thanks to all you guys. I'm going to take off in a minute. I'm gone. Yes, big up. Big up. Big up, Audley. Big up, Audley. Me see you now.
A big day in sports on Saturday, a knockout in Memphis, a knockdown drag-out in Raleigh, plus Barry knocks one way out in the Bronx.
You down to Memphis for our showcase highlight. Brian Kenny and company going to handle the business on that end.
Guys, thank you very much. Brian Kenny, Max Kellerman, and Al Bernstein. We had a relatively clean fight, and the referee counted to 10. Mike Tyson perhaps won 1 round, the first round, and that's it. After that, all Lennox Lewis. Now, before the second fight with Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson once said he at least took his beating like a man. He did indeed on this night against Lennox Lewis. He took a savage beating at the very start. Of course, we don't know that at the beginning of the fight. And Al, in the first fight and the first round, it was so much tension, so much drama, and Mike Tyson came out jabbing.
He did. This jab landed against Lennox Lewis. So did several, which portend good things for Tyson. And he actually won the first round, though it was a pretty close round. There you see him throwing a left hook. But at points in that round, the straight right hand of Lewis was able to get in. Round 2, things started to change. Lewis' jab became more effective, and that was to be the big story in this fight. Then the uppercut, also an important punch. Lewis would land many, many uppercuts during the course of this fight. There was yet another. That was a big weapon for him.
By the time we got to round 4, Max just pointed out, see the whistling uppercut there, and Tyson, who's already bleeding at this point.
Lennox's size and skill took over. By the 4th round, it was a mismatch. There you see him landing the overhand right, which he did to great effect throughout the fight. He hurt Tyson with a right hand. There's another overhand right, also the uppercut. He hurt Tyson with a right hand, and it kind of pushed him down. Tyson really was taking a little breather, I think, at that point. The referee penalized Eddie Cotton, penalized Lennox Lewis a point, saying he hit him while he was down. It didn't appear that way. Maybe Cotton was so intent on not being unjust to Tyson that he overcompensated and was a little unjust to Lewis. By the 6th round, it was a total mismatch. Lennox was able to control the fight. The distance with a jab was playing with Tyson with his hands down. When Tyson would get through the jab, he'd catch straight right hands, overhand rights, uppercuts, and Lennox Lewis with that right hand is as big a puncher as you ever want to see. Tyson took just a terrible beating.
By round 8, it's the 8th and final round. There'd be 2 knockdowns in this round, Al.
In this round in which Lewis ended the fight, again, the right hand, a huge weapon. That one of the few body punches thrown by Lewis or Tyson, and it was a good one. And there again, the uppercut, a big weapon for Lewis. He got Mike Tyson in trouble, and that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, early in the fight, Tyson was trying to slip and thing, but it didn't last long. By the end of the fight, Tyson was just standing up straight, standing in front of Lewis, and Lewis was able to do as he pleased. Tyson's a very sturdy guy. He came out, took his licking, took Lennox 8 rounds to chop him down, but chop him down he did. But there's the heavyweight champion. A lot of people are going to be happy to see that image of Tyson semi-conscious on the floor. It's a shame, you can call him a bully, you can call him what you want, but in all of his losses, he's taken his beating like a man. And there's Lennox Lewis. Look, that's the heavyweight champion of the world and a distinguished one among the best of all time, 10 or 12.
Well, he didn't take it beating like a man in every single fight. That second Evander Holyfield fight, he was taking a chomp out of the ear. But Tyson loses here in a clean knockout. Again, Eddie Cotton took a point away from Lennox Lewis, but it never goes to the judges. Neither man has ever lost a decision, by the way, and Tyson goes out on his shield. He's fighting flat-footed by the end of the 2nd round. Take a look now at the punch stats. And again, sometimes the punch stats can be indicative of the bout, and Al, I believe they clearly are.
Well, this is a very important stat. You see that Lennox Lewis landed 53% of his jabs. It became a dominant force in this fight. And Tyson, we didn't expect him to land too many jabs, but when he was better in the old days, he did jab his way in effectively. Not tonight.
No, but he did use the jab a lot, which at least, he was trying to do the right thing, couldn't do it. Look, Lennox threw more, landed at a much higher percentage, landed the harder shots, the cleaner shots, totally statistically dominated the fight, and dominated it in the ring for sure.
Jeremy Schaap has more now with the heavyweight champion of the world.
Lennox, does this make up for the bite?
Absolutely. I said that I was going to discipline Mike Tyson in the ring, and that's what I aimed to do. I went out there and did it. I got off to a sticky start, but then, Emmanuel Stewart told me to settle down, so I settled down. And after that, it was just showing the world that I was a pugilist specialist.
Lennox, and then take me to the 8th round and the knockout punch, the whole sequence.
Well, I was throwing my jab, and, it didn't seem like he could get away from my jab, so I was just, putting that probing jab out there and seeing which way he was going to duck, and he really was ducking to my right, so I threw a looping right hand and caught him straight on the chin and put him out.
You said you were going to win this fight. You said you were going to win it by knockout. You said you would win it easily, but there always has to be some kernel of doubt in the back of your mind. When did you erase that kernel of doubt?
Well, when I was starting to get to him, when I was seeing that, I was cutting him open with my jabs when his nose was bleeding, that just inspired me more. And the Memphis fans were great. They were cheering for me, and I had a lot of fans out there cheering for me, and, I felt good in there.
The significance of this victory in your storied career?
Definitely a defining moment for Lennox Lewis's legacy.
Do you feel you've silenced your critics?
Absolutely. What else is there for me to prove? I've proved everything.
For those thinking, where does he really stand in the all-time picture? Well, one of the best older heavyweights of all time at 34 and older. Look at his record, 6-1, and now at the age of 36, standing on top the heavyweight division as a dominant heavyweight champion. Al, Lennox Lewis knew this was going to be a legacy fight. but he was a favorite in this bout, but not a huge favorite either. He still had something to prove.
No, amazingly not so. I hope that revisionist historians don't do what they sometimes do, especially with Lennox Lewis, and that is go back and denigrate his opponents after he beats them. They denigrated Galata, said he wasn't really a tough Akinwande. Then Michael Grant was too inexperienced. David Tua, well, he became one-dimensional after the fight when in reality he was a great threat. Yes, this was a diminished Mike Tyson that he faced tonight, but he got the job done, and I hope people do understand he's fought the very best of his era.
And I think Mike Tyson, Max, came in to win this fight. He was subdued by Lennox Lewis.
Lennox Lewis was too big, too good in an era of super heavyweights, guys 240 pounds and better that can take you out at any minute with either hand, many of them. Lennox Lewis has lost 2 fights by knockout. He avenged both those fights, both by stoppages. The Rahman knockout in the rematch was devastating. He's beaten Tua, as Al said, Michael Grant, Evander Holyfield twice, Mike Tyson. He is an historically great heavyweight champion among those heavyweight champions that have separated themselves, that have distinguished themselves even from other heavyweight champions.
Now, granted, Mike Tyson, of course, in this fight, humbled, but just think of the contrast between the man that we heard in New York in January and the man you're about to hear right now. A remarkable interview with Mike Tyson. Let's go back to Jeremy Schaap.
You fought a lot of good fighters over the years. You fought Evander Holyfield twice. Is this the toughest opponent you ever had?
Well, listen, tonight he was the toughest. He was victorious, and a loss is a loss, and you really can't equate who's tougher from a loss. You just know you got your butt kicked, and you can't say, well, he kicked my butt better than he kicked my butt. I don't know. It's just, I'm just happy that he did a wonderful job and he didn't kill me in there.
You know, he said quite often that Mike Tyson had never seen a fighter like Lennox Lewis before. Is that now something you can say that he was right about?
Well, I don't know if I've never seen a fighter like that, but tonight he fought magnificently, and he was the best fighter tonight.
Where do you go from here, Mike?
I don't know, man. I might just fade into Bolivian, you know what I mean? I don't have nowhere to go and nothing to do, you know what I mean? I just go fly my pigeons on the roof in New York, you know?
You're not going to fight again?
I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to chill out with my children and fly my birds. I'm just, you know, listen, I'm not in your guys' world. I'm a street guy, you know what I mean? I don't have to ever worry about seeing your guys, like worrying about your guys judging me or saying anything about me, because it really doesn't touch my bases or my nucleus.
Were you doing all those wild things from January through the press conference most recently to sell tickets?
I did a good job, and I did a good job, and I'm just happy, you know what I mean, that we fought and it's over, and that if it's possible we could do it again and get another payday, you know what I mean? Because it's really, this is a beautiful sport and it's been great to me.
Al, I know you've said that, hey, the standards are lowered now. We just want a clean fight, and we'll accept that, and some people are happy with that. But there's a glimpse of the sportsman that we knew in the late 80s, Mike Tyson.
Yeah, Mike Tyson showed that. As you pointed out earlier in the week, you know, he'd go pick people up when he knocked them out, and there was much of that before, and we did see that in that interview. And I'm just going to say, people would like it a lot more if we saw that before the fight sometime.
Where does he go from here, Max? I mean, who can he fight? He's still marketable, but who does he go to?
He'll find someone. He's a celebrity. He'll always make 7 figures. Look, you can love Mike Tyson, you can hate Mike Tyson, but for the people who really hate him, don't pretend not to be moved a little bit by that. Yeah, I think it was genuine, and you can call Mike Tyson a bully, but in 3 fights throughout the second Holyfield fight where he was really taking a beating, a prolonged beating, and he was knocked down, the referee started to count, and Mike Tyson struggled to get to his feet. He just barely beat the count against Douglas. He was getting up here against Lennox Lewis. You can call him a bully if you want, but he has enough heart to take his beating and keep on ticking as long as he can go.
Now, Lennox Lewis has it to give the beating. By the way, you give credit to Mike Tyson. Lennox Lewis repelled a very game challenger early in this fight.
He really did. You know, early in that fight, you pointed out, Brian, there was much tension in that building. And let's face it, many people were suggesting Mike Tyson's power was simply going to be too much for Lennox Lewis. We have to go back to that moment and remember it. Lennox Lewis never bought into that. He wasn't impressed or intimidated by Mike Tyson, and he fought a very good tactical fight. Wasn't the best Lennox Lewis ever, but it was good.
Again, he never had the fight with Riddick Bowe, but that was really Riddick Bowe's problem. He finally did put down the threat from Evander Holyfield, and now he has cleaned out his era with the win over Iron Mike Tyson, the former heavyweight champion of the world. For Al Bernstein and Max Kellerman, I'm Brian Kenny. Let's send it back to the studio.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. So much more to come here.